In this episode, we talk about why your story is so important to tell.
I'm Siena.
And I'm Toast.
We're partners in love, life, and music, and we've been together since 2001.
With each episode of this podcast, our goal is to help our fellow LGBT community members lift their lives to the next level.
Happy fall, y'all.
It is fall, y'all.
Happy fall.
Oh, go ahead.
We have just been enjoying witnessing the change of the season here.
Yes, this is our first time spending the seasons so far north. In our case, it's Portland, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And there's foliage happening here.
Yes. Mega foliage.
There's foliage. Compared to where we grew up, which was Hawaii, and where we spent more of the previous years, which was Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Portland has the foliage.
And actually, we are coming upon our 1-year anniversary of meeting Portland.
Of seeing Portland for the first time. Yes.
Which was last year, late October, we met Portland and fell in love.
With Portland.
With Portland, yes.
So we got the U-Haul and did the thing.
Yeah. Like all lesbians do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lesbian joke for you token heteros there.
Just one night and the U-Haul appeared. No. Anywho, so fall really has been gorgeous. And, you know, like in some of the other podcasts that we've put out, we've spoken about how just amazing it is out here because of the trees. Mm-hmm. We're like, oh my God, look at all this green, look at all this green. And, you know, anytime you just go out to do an errand, it's like, look at these trees.
It's a cavalcade of trees.
And we didn't realize how much we had a tree deficit, like in our soul, right? Mm-hmm. But now it's like even crazier because every moment we're stopping on errands.
Driving on the freeway,
opening the window when it's freezing and taking a quick snap of the beautiful trees. It's like the color.
The reds and
the
so orange and the browns.
Yes. Because there is such a thing as color therapy.
Right.
You know, so it's not just the change of the seasons, but it's like really absorbing these beautiful colors. Because prior to the traditional fall reds and oranges, we had a moment of bright, vibrant yellow.
Right.
And there's still you can still see some moments of yellow, but prior to these beautiful, deeper colors, we had this pop of lemon yellow everywhere.
You're paying a close attention.
Right? You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we'll put a picture. We'll put a picture up.
Yes.
Because I have some of the lemon yellow trees. It's been so great.
So those of you who live in other areas or grew up even better, right? Grew up in areas where the seasons are, the seasons. They might be kind of chuckling at us.
I know. They probably think we're so silly.
Yeah, because we've lived our whole lives up until now not experiencing the seasons.
Right.
Except in postcards and, you know.
Yeah. It's nice. And I'm excited even for winter, even though most people would be like, what? You know, because it's so magical.
Well,
I mean,
you know, this is good. Yeah, this is going to be interesting because this will be our first. This will be our first winter from start to finish.
Yep, and we might hate it after.
Yeah, I can see how it could get old pretty quick. Well, but I know that we are going to make good use of our cozy house and
our fireplace.
Yep, and drink some hot drinks and bundle up and just be cozy.
Yes,
which has its own charm.
It does.
Okay.
All right. So why don't we move on to reviews from the community?
Okay.
All right. So we have a review here. So again, thank you so much for those of you who have taken the time to leave us a review. We truly appreciate it. And as you know, we are trying to get the podcast out there. And this is one way that you all can help. So this review is titled Heartfelt, Warm, and Fuzzy Feelings. So it's perfect for our fall podcast. And it was left in iTunes by Chi-Town Chica Clo. I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you think?
You're showing it to me,
Chi-Town
but
Chica Clo, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. From the U.S. And the review goes, I love listening to this podcast any time of day, and especially on days when I want to feel a warm, cozy, and snuggly kind of feeling. Like the feeling you get around the holidays. Siena and Toast are great hosts who touch on topics that we can all benefit from thinking about, like spirituality, relationships, and the true meaning of things. I have been a dedicated listener for about 3 years, and I'm so happy their podcast has made a resurgence, and I get excited whenever a new episode is posted. Keep up the authentically good work, ladies. Mahalo.
Aw, that feels like a cozy hug. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chi-Town Chica Clo.
And correct, it would be so funny if it's pronounced
not
completely
that,
different.
All right.
So
Thank you so
let
much.
us know. You'll be entertained by being corrected.
So please send us a message. We would love to send you a little gift. And for any of you who have left an iTunes review for us, don't forget, send us a message and we can get your little gift out there.
All right.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Do we say oh my God?
Okay, you guys. No. I'm grossing us out. We have to stop saying each other's words.
Okay, I think it's because we haven't been doing as much music. And so we got to get back on the music game. Because I think the music helps us to, harmonize and so.
To say words together at the same time.
Yes.
Instead of having to do it by accident on a podcast.
Yes.
All right.
That's kind of disgusting. All right. So our topic today is tell your story.
And we've realized what an important thing that is and how powerful that can be.
Yes. And the current events of late really inspired the topic for this podcast.
And just in case you've been living under a rock in the fall of 2018, or you're listening to this years and years and years and years and years in the future, what has happened recently, you can search for all the gory details, but the main inspiration point for this podcast are the actions and decisions of a woman named Christine Blasey Ford, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, who felt it was her civic duty to come forward and tell her story of being sexually assaulted at the hands of the then nominee to the Supreme Court named Brett Kavanaugh.
And his friend, Mark Judge.
His friend, Mark Judge. Yes. Okay, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Oh,
There's so much disgusting political details surrounding that, but that's not what this podcast is about at this time.
So, when things like this happen, and they've definitely increased since 2016, I would say.
What do you mean things like this? People
Just
telling their story?
The political climate, climate we are in.
Okay.
So I know I have felt at times pretty powerless as everything's happening, and there seems to be tons of like loopholes and backdoors that we're unaware of, and secret deals,
or
and
just
things.
outright blatant in your face corruption.
Or blatant in your face corruption, right?
Yeah.
True, very true, very true. So we thought that in light of what just recently happened, that what we can shine a light on here is that Dr. Ford came forward and she was brave enough to tell her story. And so there is so much power. We wanted to focus on that aspect of this time, that we each have so much power because we each have a story to tell. And our stories do come from our wounds that we have normally you can trace them back to when you are a child. But I think we are all pretty much familiar with whatever wounds we have. But within those wounds, there's the beauty of a story that can be told.
To help others.
To help
realize
others.
that they're not alone.
Exactly. And thanks for making that point, because it's not about to commiserate, and to just find someone else with that story and then keep each other down and just keep telling the story. It's not to live in the story anymore,
right?
But it's to share
it's
the
to transcend it,
so that you can transcend it. And one of the things of,
or I guess, I'm sorry, I don't want to. This is a tough subject, right? So I'm trying to watch our words, and when I say transcend, I don't mean to imply that, you can just overcome it and somehow pretend it never happened. Not that kind of transcend.
Well, to me, that wouldn't be transcend.
Okay.
Good. To me, it wouldn't be that. So,
transform, to take it.
To transmute the story.
Yes.
So you take something that was definitely negative in your life, but you grow from it. And part of that, as you deal with it individually, is to eventually share the story. So that someone else can be healed by it, as well as you healing even deeper from it as you share this story.
Because you want to share it with people who are safe. You want to share it with somebody who is worthy.
Who is worthy of hearing your story.
Yeah.
And
in that way, I think you allow yourself to be cared for, to be acknowledged, validated, affirmed, right? And
that you are okay.
Acknowledged, yes.
You're okay. We're all okay. We have all these facades of perfection around us, and even trying to hold up this facade of like, oh, look, I'm perfect, or look, everything's fine.
I've got it all together.
Yes. I mean, first of all, that takes so much energy, but also that's not real. It's not the perfection or the seeming perfection that is the bond between all of us. It's the vulnerability. It's the story. When you share your story, you put yourself in this vulnerable position. You're being vulnerable. And it's the sharing of those stories that create a deeper connection with other people.
Yes.
With other humans, right? And this connection really, you don't even have to have the same wound.
Right.
But you're basically
none of us
sending
have
the message,
exactly the same stories.
You're basically sending the message that, hey, look, I'm not perfect. And then you're like, oh my God, yeah, I'm so not perfect.
Right. Or I had this terrible experience or terrible thing done to me.
But look, I rose up.
Or
I've transformed.
Or
hey,
look,
you know what? I'm having
struggling
a hard time.
with it.
Help.
Right.
You need help.
Right.
I mean, there's all kinds of...
and okay,
there's just so much we can say. So I just feel
I know. You know how you said about the facade of perfection and just, hey, we got to be real about even the unpleasantness and the hurt and the transgressions that have happened in our past, right? I guess what I really appreciated and admired about the testimony that Dr. Ford gave was she was being honest, right? And real, and telling the truth as much as she could recall. But at the same exact time, exactly what you said earlier, she wasn't playing the victim.
Yeah.
And she wasn't, she was being real and authentic, but also appropriate in the sense where she exercised enough self-control and character and integrity to comport herself with dignity, to treat others with respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, whereas somebody else in a similar position could be real, but could do away with any effort at exercising self-control or character or integrity, and just be like, you
Right.
know what, I am so PO'd. This guy ruined my life.
Right.
You know, and how dare you, and even entertain the idea that he could be on the Supreme Court. This is BS. But no, and that could have been real. Right?
Well, that's exactly.
So I'm
and
talking
that's
about
that's a good distinction to make, because I think what it comes down to is the intention. Because her intention was really, she felt like it was her duty to let the people know. They were making a decision, and she felt like, hey,
she had relevant information.
Yeah, because she seemed to have done her own healing with what happened, as far as her therapy, with her family, all of that. And so her intention, so the intention is important. The example you just shared prior to that, with the person saying, and just being in the victim mentality.
And lashing out.
I mean, that person might have a different intention. They might still feel completely hurt, and hurt people tend to hurt. So they are lashing out. We all have such different levels in the healing process. So depending on where you are in the healing process, there will come a time when you do have an opportunity to tell your story. Now, it might not be in the very beginning of when you feel you have identified the wound, but there will come a time when you have that opportunity. And that truly is such an opportunity to connect with others. And again, as Tos had mentioned earlier, when you do tell your story, tell it to people that are safe, a safe environment where you can share that part of yourself with.
And I guess that's why therapy is so valuable, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Because that is a safe environment.
Right.
Set up for it to be a safe environment.
Yeah, set up
so
to be
you are, and that's a good point, because that's probably where a lot of us have first shared our stories.
Yeah.
And come to terms and feel safe enough to witness the story. Like, oh yeah, that happened. And so I think Tos, we covered a little bit of one of my stories back in the day when we were doing the podcast regularly.
Right. I think, so long ago. I think we touched on it.
I think we covered a little bit on the fact that I was sexually abused. But to expand on that story, when I was 13, something happened that triggered a memory where I realized that I had been sexually abused from the time that I was a toddler, all the way up until when I was 13. And after I remembered that, then the physical abuse stopped and turned into verbal abuse. And the reason being is that I was old enough I was conscious and in my body again to stop the abuse. And I'm not saying, and that was just my situation where the way I stopped it was enough to stop the physical part. But again, it went on in a verbal way. But not everyone is able to do that. I don't think everyone can, their situation is where they can physically stop someone from,
not everybody.
So there's so many factors. Not everyone's going to stop.
Right.
So that was my part of my story. But with this wound that has affected me in so many ways, one of the very positive lights about it is that it encouraged me to study social work. It gave me a direction. And I remember learning of a sweet 3-year-old girl in a preschool that I had been working at, and her social worker would come pick her up, drop her off, and I asked about her story to one of the other people that I was working with. Her name was Ashley, and she just melted my heart so much because in her I saw myself at that age, and I felt, gosh, she is just helpless, and seeing her amazing social worker come pick her up every day, drop her off, I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. So then I decided to study social work. And as a social work student, you do a lot of one-on-one work with your classmates, and you are encouraged to use real situations because you're learning how to counsel. And so I remember one day I had not shared my story of being sexually abused, and here there was an opportunity. And I was a second-year social work student at the time, and I was paired up with this young woman that I had known as a classmate and fellow social work student, and she just looked like she had it all together. You know, she was just, she
put together really well.
Yeah, she wore nice clothes. She was always, had her hair nice and nice makeup, and
responsible,
very
good
kind,
student.
responsible. She was one of the top students. And so anyways, I was paired up with her, and I shared the story. I told the story of how I was sexually abused, and I was sitting there, and I just felt there was a moment where I'm looking at her and her put togetherness. And after I finished telling the story, my stomach just sank to my feet, and I felt so exposed. I felt like this live, raw wire. And I felt, and as those feelings started to come up, I just felt so flawed and found out and just so broken. And I remember instantly all of these feelings, the surge of all of this flawed, just broken feelings coming up. I just went numb because I knew how to do that well. Just turn on just stop feeling. And I did that. And honestly, when it was time for her to share her story, I don't even remember it. Because I don't think I was present and listening.
Okay. Yeah.
But what was interesting is after our time was up and class ended, she asked if I would go with her to lunch. So I did. So I went with her to lunch. And at this point now, time is going on, and I've completely swept all those feelings under the rug, right? I went numb, swept it under the rug. We went out to lunch, and we took our lunch to one of the meeting rooms. So it was just private between she and I. And she started to cry. And I was like, oh no, what's going on? And she told me, thank you for telling your story. Oh my God, I'm going to cry. She said, thank you for telling your story. And she continued to tell me that she had been abused as well. And not only that, but her brother was also abused. And that was the first time I had ever heard of, I knew that guys probably got abused as well. But that was the first time I ever heard of someone that I knew.
Like a male being abused. Yeah.
Who was being abused. And she and her brother had been abused all growing up. And I just remember in that moment, all of those feelings I had that I numbed myself from. I felt okay. I felt like, wow, look at this person. This person who is so smart, who is so kind, who puts herself together like this, like the same thing happened.
Yeah.
And in her sharing her story and how important, she said it was that I shared my story. We were able to bond. And I'll tell you that from that moment on, we were stuck like glue. And we supported each other throughout our social work studies. We also decided to well, my decision to go to law school was by default. We tell that story in another episode. But she always knew she wanted to be an attorney. She became an attorney, a successful attorney. She got married, had a family. I mean, so all of this just to say that there is so much power when you tell your story, not just for the person you're telling your story to, but for yourself.
Right.
It's another level of healing.
Yes.
And even as I tell all of you my story, I'm yet healed again. Oh my God. That was a lot. That was a lot.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think it's interesting because, like, I knew I wanted to share this with everyone. But going back and telling the story, remembering that time I told the story, oh, it just moved me because I can see her, I can see me, it moves me, you know?
Yeah. And isn't that amazing? I mean, I've experienced the same kind of thing just in you and I having conversations, and, you know, I'm telling you a story, and we each can think that, oh, we're good. Right. Like, yeah, I know. I'm aware of what happened, and I've dealt with it, and I'm okay. And you are okay. We are okay. We are all okay.
We are.
But it is amazing the force, the energy that is there in the story. And when we tell it, that energy makes itself felt, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
It's there. And I think that energy, that intensity is what is part of that glue that bonds us together as individuals, as tellers of stories, as listeners of stories, as retellers of stories, as we tell, it doesn't even have to be our story, right? I think, and as we as a community, just as a larger community, are aware of everyone has a story, and we're all sharing them. And yeah, I think the culture that we have of Netflix and chill, right?
Let's chill.
Right? Isn't that the thing? Netflix and chill. Just binge watch. And
I thought it was like another Netflix.
Oh, no.
Like Netflix and chill. Netflix and Hulu.
I'm referring to this culture that we have of, it's an overabundance of stories in terms of TV shows and miniseries and movies.
Yes,
and there's no problem with, there's an infinite library of these stories that you can just sit in front of a TV screen and be told, quote unquote. And that definitely has its place. And I think
I love me some Netflix toast.
Yeah. Okay. But I think the power that we feel from those stories is just a mere shadow and
fraction.
It's a shallow reflection of the stories that we have as individuals. The stories that we see on the screen that we just, and we have a hunger for them, right? I can't wait till Game of Thrones, the next season comes out. I want to see that. But the reason it touches us is because it's a reflection of real life, flesh and blood, the stories of individuals, of you, me.
Yes, and that's why we truly are here as teachers to teach each other.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much to learn from each other. We're all teachers in some way, shape, or form, and life is the classroom.
Yeah, and not by blatantly teaching, but just by being ourselves,
by being
exposing, being real with our stories.
So, thank you for listening to this emotional episode. I truly appreciate all of you who tune in regularly to listen to our podcast and to listen to what we have to share and the different things that have helped us on our journey, our spiritual, personal journeys. And as long as there are people who are listening, we will continue showing up here for all of you. But one of the things, again, is to remember that we each have a story, and oftentimes many stories. And you will know when it's time to share yours. You will know, you will feel it. So it's not about, okay, let me go on and tell my story to everyone. You'll feel it in yourself, and you might feel a little scared. But as long as you're sharing it, whether it's your therapist, whether it's someone so close to you, in a safe environment, there's just so much power there. And one of the things I would say is, even if you are sharing it, say, with someone like a therapist, who has a position of more of authority, don't even fool yourself into thinking that it's a one-way street here, that the therapist is just helping you. We truly are learning still from each other's stories. And so just know that there's power in telling your story.
I could not say anything better myself.
Well,
so I think we'll just leave it at that.
Okay. It's so quiet. So let's just all take a deep breath, everyone.
Yes.
I'm speaking more to myself here.
In through the nose. Out through the nose. Or the mouth.
I had to do a mouth one. Okay. All right. So thank you for showing up. We will be here again next week.
And until next time, please, if you haven't already, join our email list. The link is, as always, in the show notes.
Exciting things are coming.
We're working on it.
So excited.
Right. Okay. So until next time,
this is Siena.
And this is Toast, telling you, love life. Live free. Is that creepy?
That was scary.